A man once told his wife to wait, not for a ring, not for a diamond, for a field to finish harvesting. That man got married yesterday. Kaleb Cooper drove into his own wedding in an orange McLaren worth £250,000, his 5-year-old son strapped in beside him. 3 years ago, he was delivering veg boxes in a van that struggled to start on cold mornings, working contracting jobs across Oxfordshire for rates that barely covered his fuel. That's not a rags to riches story. That's a farmer who happened to be standing next to a camera when it turned on, and had the sense not to waste the opportunity. Here's the part most headlines missed. Sitting in the reception, pouring his own beer for 200 guests, recovering from surgery he'd had weeks earlier, was Jeremy Clarkson. 3 weeks before that wedding, in the final episode of Season 5 of Clarkson's Farm, Clarkson had sat across from Kaleb during what was supposed to be a conversation about harvest planning and told him he had aggressive prostate cancer, caught early, treatable, but real. Kaleb didn't talk about that moment like a co-star. He talked about it like a man who'd almost lost his best mate. And that's the actual story here. Not the McLaren, not the 500-acre venue, not the tiara or the tractor photographs. The story is what happens when a working relationship survives long enough to stop being a working relationship. Think about how that friendship actually started. A wealthy, famous television presenter with no idea how to run a farm, paired with a stubborn local kid who'd been driving tractors since before he could legally drive a car. On paper, that's a sitcom. In practice, it became 5 years of two men learning to trust each other in a job where trust is the only thing that keeps machinery, livestock, and money from all going wrong at once. Every farmer watching that wedding knew exactly what it meant for Clarkson to show up anyway. Not the celebrity version of illness, the real version, where your body tells you to rest and you go to the wedding regardless. Because some things don't wait for your recovery timeline. You don't need to be famous to understand that instinct. Anyone who's ever dragged themselves to a family event they had no business attending because missing it would have cost more than the effort already knows exactly what that moment meant. The venue itself says something too. Mariscourt sits minutes from Diddley Squat Farm. The same fields, the same roads, the same corner of the Cotswolds Kaleb has never left. He was born there. He learned to farm there. He met Tia there. He found fame there. And on Saturday, he got married there. There's a version of this story where success means leaving. A bigger house somewhere else, a life built away from where it started. Kaleb's version is the opposite. Every milestone in his life has happened within the same few square miles. And that's not a limitation, it's the point. The place made him, and he never saw a reason to trade it in. Kaleb and Tia had been together a decade before they married. Childhood sweethearts from the same patch of Oxfordshire. 3 kids arriving before the wedding did. Oscar in 2021, weeks before the show first aired. Willa in 2023. Ashton last August, born, famously, after Kaleb finished harvesting a field and told Tia to hold on until the row was done. The field was called Dead Man. A friend joked they should name the baby after it. They didn't take the joke. That detail tells you something true about Kaleb that no interview ever could. The work doesn't stop for the moment. The moment waits for the work. Clarkson wrote about that day in his column at the time, calling him the boy wonder for finishing the field before heading to the hospital. It's the kind of detail you couldn't invent if you tried, and it's the kind of detail that explains exactly why 2 very different men ended up genuinely liking each other. There's something worth noticing about how this proposal came together, too. Kaleb asked Tia to marry him on Christmas Day 2022. 3 children already between them, a business already growing, a television career already underway. Most people build a relationship in the conventional order. Date, propose, marry, then build a life. Kaleb and Tia built the life first, and let the wedding catch up whenever it was ready. That's not indecision. That's 2 people who never needed a ceremony to know what they already had. People love watching this because it's the opposite of what television usually sells them. No manufactured drama, no scripted conflict resolution. Just a bloke who started on 50 pence an hour, built a production company now sitting on 6-figure profits, wrote 3 best-selling books, landed an independent Amazon content deal, and still drove to his wedding from the same farm where he learned to drive a tractor. Every one of those business wins happened quietly, in the background, while the cameras were pointed at someone else's jokes about cows. That's arguably the more impressive part. Fame is easy to waste. Kaleb spent his on building something that doesn't need the show to keep existing. You don't buy that kind of story. You only get it by staying in one place long enough for it to happen to you. The council fought Clarkson's farm shop for years, trying to keep tourists off local roads. What they actually built, without meaning to, was the most effective advertisement British farming has ever had. Millions of people now know exactly where their food comes from because a planning committee tried to stop them from finding out. That's the irony sitting underneath this whole story. Every obstacle became content. Every setback became proof of the thing they were trying to sell in the first place, that farming is real and hard and worth paying attention to. The council spent public money trying to slow down a farm shop and ended up funding, indirectly, one of the most effective marketing campaigns British agriculture has ever had. It's worth sitting with how unlikely all of this actually was 5 years ago. Clarkson's farm wasn't supposed to work. A celebrity vanity project about a man failing to run a farm, filmed in a corner of England most viewers had never heard of, starring a 19-year-old contractor with no media experience and no interest in becoming a personality. Shows like that don't usually last one season, let alone 5. What made it last was the thing no marketing plan can manufacture. Kaleb was never performing. The frustration with Clarkson's decisions, the exhaustion at 6 a.m. starts, the pride in a good harvest, all of it was just Kaleb being Kaleb with a camera nearby. Audiences can tell the difference between someone acting authentic and someone who simply is, and they rewarded the second one with 5 seasons and counting. Kaleb's next project takes him to Australia, his first solo television lead, his first ever flight. He described the decision himself. Spending so much time around the most traveled man in the world finally pushed him to book a plane ticket of his own. Season 6 of Clarkson's Farm is already confirmed, pending how Clarkson's recovery goes, with production expected sometime in 2027. The harvest doesn't pause for any of it. It never has, and the planning disputes with the local council will presumably keep providing material regardless of what year it is. But none of that mattered on Saturday. What mattered was a boy from Chipping Norton who never wanted to be anywhere else, marrying the girl he'd loved since school, with his 3 kids watching and his best mate pouring the beer he'd brewed on the same farm where all of this began. You can't manufacture that. You can only build a life patient enough to earn it. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Cooper. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe my channel for more videos.